everybody. I am Tommy, and you are on the Lifeboat, formerly known as the Lifeboat. You are now on the Love Boat. What are we doing here? My computer's acting wonky. About that, everybody. Let's see who we got. Kristen Molina. We got Brock Bandy. What's happening? I see Sandy Wandy. Good to see you. Jane Aldrich, what's happening? Joey Girl. You know, the one problem is certain green names don't come up easily for me. Hey, honey, good to see you. Barbara Aldrich, what's happening? All right, people. This is almost embarrassing because who wants to talk about Diddy? But the truth of the matter is, well, let's be honest. I have a little bit of time talking about Diddy on this case. And we're getting to crunch time. October the 3rd is when Diddy is going to be sentenced. And I hear so many people making predictions on what's going to happen, from Trump pardoning him all the way down to, they're going to let him out on the day of sentencing because he's done enough time. My experience would say that is not particularly likely. Renee B., good to see you. How's my mother doing? Well, to be honest, she could be doing better. We'll still take all of the ones that we can get. My mother had to have surgery after her fall. And one of the things that happens, hello, Todd. One of the things that happens with this kind of surgery is that you are primed and ready for infection. Being treated for one, they, it's under control, but they would like to keep it under control. And we take all of the thoughts and prayers you can spare on that. Greatly appreciate it. It stresses everybody out. My older sister is there, and we've been discussing whether or not we might make a trip back to the States here for a brief period of time, one or both of us. So we're looking into that. But thank you so much for your concern. You guys are the bomb. Hey, John, good to see you. I'm glad that you are here. So what's going on with this cat? For those who have been living under a rock or have never watched my channel before, Sean Combs, 55 years old, was charged with a whole host of crimes. But the big one was racketeering. He was charged in the feds. And in July, they found him on all of the biggest of charges. Now, if you want to listen to people all over the internet, you will hear that jury was bought and paid for, allegedly. Now, who knows if that's the truth or not? I certainly do not. However, allegedly, the guy has got. Hold on one second. Allegedly, the guy's got priors for buying juries in the past, right? When the Shine Barrow and J-Lo incident happened right around New Year's time last century in New York. Diddy was in a nightclub with Shine Barrow and J-Lo, and a shooting took place. The dopest nerd took a bullet to the grill, a bullet that still has fragments in there. Said she saw very clearly Sean Combs pointing the pistol at her and shooting. He tried to get J-Lo to toss it out of a automobile. And everybody basically testified to what happened. There was a decent amount of belief that this guy is probably going to get convicted. He did not. He allegedly bragged to women that he was intimate with that with the help of Johnny Cochran, who is no longer with us and cannot refute these claims. So this is a big allegedly. But allegedly, that Diddy told Cassie Ventura that he bought that jury. That they were able to, Murphy, it's you, good to see you, that they were able to purchase at least one person on that jury, and he was able to get a not guilty verdict. And there's been some weird stuff concerning the particular jury that just ended in July, and I don't know whether or not any of the things that people are saying are true or not. That's not something that, I don't think anybody can know that. There's certainly people that talk on the internet like they did, and I don't know, maybe a year ago I would be doing it too. But there's no telling what's happening. I will tell you this. If I was Rune Subramanian, that's the judge that handled this case, and you got a guy in there that you plan on giving very little time to on account of the Mann Act violations, you're not going to give him the full rip. You're going to give him 5 years. Or you're going to give him 6 months, or one of those sentences that you keep people are predicting he's going to get. Why leave him in? When Judge Subramanian left P. Diddy in, DS Diane Kitty, thank you. 10-3 will be interesting. One's for Moscowville. Thank you. Yeah, 10-3 is the date of the sentencing, October the 3rd. It will be interesting. I just don't see a judge leaving him in prison if he planned on giving him a very small sentence. When Subramanian was pressed as to why they didn't give him a bail package, his response was, for the same reasons I didn't the first time. Now, if you paid attention to this, the reasons that he gave him the first time was, I think the guy's a danger to society. I don't think the cat can be trusted. I think the people that, who have testified against him, he's tried to reach out to these people, and the judge was worried for their safety. I think that's a legitimate pointing in the direction of where Rune Subramanian's head is. Interesting thing happened on, August the 20th. There was an article written in the most fantastic of all magazines. You know the ones. Hold on one second. That was supposed to happen. In theory, your comments should be popping up on the screen. I guess they're beta testing this. It says beta test next to it, so I don't know. We'll give it a try and see if you guys like it. Subramanian believes this guy is a threat, right? Bottom line, the judge believes this dude's a threat. He said, I'm leaving him in for the same reasons I cited the last time. If you think the guy's a threat, you're probably not going to be gung-ho on giving him the smallest sentence that money can buy. Now, allegedly, he's been trying to get a pardon from the highest office in the land. Regardless of what you think of the current president, just from anybody's standpoint, it's probably not the kind of flack that any president would want, even if, there's been so many speculations. Well, the president's going to do it because he's got dirt on the president. You know what, peeps? It makes for great content. It makes for wicked good thumbnails. It gets a lot of people to click on your stuff. But yeah, happy 15 months, DS Diane Kitty. That is a long damn time, especially when you consider those 15 months. You're a hero. Appreciate you sticking around. I mean that. So there was an article in the most, one of the best reputations for any newspapers in the country. Of course, I mean, they brought you Busted Elvis Found on Mars. The National Enquirer came out with an article on the 20th of August talking about Sean Combs through a friend, allegedly, that says Diddy is traumatized living in MDC Brooklyn. This is hell on him. Absolute hell. He thought he was going to go in there and be a stud. He thought he was going to strut around that bad boy and buy everybody ramen noodles and Zuzus and Wham Whams, and everything was going to just be perfectly smooth sailing for the diddler. But allegedly, that's not what's happening. Now, also allegedly, he wrote to the judge on this in what could be called ex parte communication. I don't know whether or not it went through his attorney or not. You couldn't really find that. If it went through his attorney, that's one thing. If it didn't, it's called ex parte communication. And judges really don't want to be contacted by defendants. That kind of stuff, you want to make a plea, do it at sentencing. But Diddy is saying that he has been fed maggot-infested food in there. Did you catch that? They're giving him food. Say, what's that? That old chestnut. Allegedly, the diddler says that they're giving him food with maggots in it. I'm going to be honest with you, people. I saw a lot of really funky stuff in the feds. I saw a lot of stuff that would absolutely make you sick. I didn't see anybody being fed maggots. I didn't see maggots in kitchens. That usually takes a decent amount of rot, right? It usually, carrion is the kind of thing you see that on. But bad meat could do it. You'd have to leave it out a really, really long time. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, things like people putting broken glass in food, if they think you hurt kids or they think you're a chomo, they can do some really, really ugly stuff in there. And that can be the National Enquirer is still in business, says Jane Aldrich. It is. Believe it or not, they kind of took a fork in the road. And I'm not giving the National Enquirer props, I promise you. Is it unusual to take this long to get your sentencing? Not at all, Renee B. Not at all. In the feds, after the trial, or even after a change of plea. So Diddy has been found guilty on a couple of charges. Before the sentencing, they can have they have the pre-sentence report. The PSR in the feds takes into account everything. So if the diddler were to do the interview and say, you know what, I was molested as a kid, that kind of thing could be brought into the conversation as a mitigating factor. there are a lot of guys who are hella hard who say, I'm not even going to do the PSR. It's a really, it's a questionable move. Like gangbangers don't do it all the time because they consider it telling on themselves. That, you know, they're not gonna participate in that process of doing the PSR at all. PSRs are done with your attorney sitting next to you, and they can tell you don't answer this, or if you feel like a question they're asking is crossing a line. But truth be told, by the time they get in to see you, they've talked to every girlfriend that they can research. They talk to your ex-wives. They talk to, I mean, they really tear it up. So I would imagine that the PSR must be a tough thing for the diddler. Archie's mom says the case is confusing. I'll be honest with you, man. The thing about this case is the racketeering charge is a difficult thing to explain because, and I'm not trying to be cold-hearted or anything else, but it's one of those things that you kind of got to read. Ignorance of that particular law makes it very law makes it very difficult to prove, or, you know, beyond a reasonable doubt to people that don't understand it. Because every time we hear RICO, you think of a massive group of people. What if you're involved in racketeering and there's only one other person that you're working with? That's still racketeering. And the argument that, you know, we know for a fact, everybody, this isn't even contested, but we know for a fact that there were employees of Diddy that hired the rooms for the hotels. There were people that went in there afterwards and cleaned up the feces and blood and semen and urine and everything else that ended up at these parties, apparently. So we know a lot of funky stuff. Well, that's an enterprise. If you're sitting down and talking to somebody who's knowingly going to go break the law at your behest, that is an enterprise. But trying to explain this to a jury of people who go, how can there be a RICO case with one person? I've heard wildly intelligent or allegedly wildly intelligent talk show hosts do the same thing. You can't have a RICO case with one person. Well, there wasn't one person. But what they mean is they want to see this whole group of people that are all getting prosecuted. And it's really not that kind of a deal. After my son took his plea, we didn't know when he was going to catch the train. Yeah, that's a term that you hear once you're convicted and you go in and you're sentenced. Depending on the region of the country you're in, and depending on how long, especially in the federal system, and depending on the time of the year and the region of the country. So if you're getting right up around Christmas time, the rumor was always they don't ship anybody during the holiday season. If you're there, you're there. You're going to be there till the end. I got shipped out 2 days before Christmas the first time I went to the feds. So there's really not much truth to that. But once you are convicted, you're waiting for the train to come. That's the bus that's going to take you to the feds. And I've never gotten on one that was actually a federal bus. These are independent contractors that move inmates around the country. It's a big business. Transcorp is the group that flies the airplanes and does all of that, but they had smaller private firms. So the first time you go to the feds, like I got into this bus and it was seats. It was, and we started driving off and the cop stands up and goes, we got DVDs. We were shackled in the front on belly chains, so you could use your hands a little bit. And the guy said, we're going to put it up to a vote to see what movies you guys want to watch, and we'll go from there. It was ridiculous. So we're looking at big screen TVs in this very, very comfortable van. Keep in mind, not a Fed van, but none of us know any better because it's the first time we're going to the feds. And the guy says, have you guys all eaten? And we're like, no, man, it would have been another hour before we ate. And he goes, well, do you want McDonald's or Burger King? And we're all looking around at each other like, yeah, the feds, right? We did something right. Unfortunately, it doesn't last very long. In fact, it just goes downhill from there. I mean, it gets absolutely awful from there. But they take you to the first stop, wherever that's going to be. That's catching the train. And they don't want anyone to know when they're getting picked up. The cops will never tell you. They won't even give you hints. And the reason is they're worried about Vin Diesel, Johnny Scoville. Yeah, they think Vin Diesel is going to pull up behind you in a Charger. You know what I mean? I do. And then he's going to spring you from the transportation van, because we've all seen it happen. They take that transportation crap seriously. When you get on the real bus, there's a dude that sits in a cage in the back with a shotgun. So he's sitting behind everybody, holding a shotgun. Right next to the toilet, by the way. There's a little facility back there so that you can, if you have to pee or you have to drop a deuce, you can go back there and see if you can pull that off with your hands cuffed to your waist. I always made a point not to eat or drink when I was getting on Con Air. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Does anyone go through an evaluation at prison before they're assigned? Yeah. So like I was talking about the other night with Kohlberger, he is in the intake unit. And the purpose of that intake unit is to do an evaluation. It doesn't mean that when you get out of there, you're going to prison at that facility. Very often you're going to go in, you're going to be evaluated. And like I've said before, the purpose of the fish tank, or that little period of time that he's in right now, is to see whether or not you can handle doing time. Diddy doesn't seem to be able to handle doing time. The maggot stuff is ridiculous. Not getting fed food with maggots in it. Don't know how you pull it off. I really don't. I mean, the kitchen at a prison, the food might be D-grade stuff, but I never saw anything like rot. I've been in a bunch of kitchens. I never saw anything like that. The food's awful. And let's say you're having chicken for dinner and they're mixing it into some kind of a casserole or whatever. There's usually inmates that are trying to sell that chicken out the front door or the back door, and as part of their hustle. Now, in theory, you're not supposed to do anything that's going to take away from actually feeding the fellas. Never works out that way, though. It really does not ever take. Rock Bandy says, please take a second to show your support by hitting the like button. You know what? May as well hit subscribe, too, because fun stuff is coming. We're going to start doing a little bit more in true crime, because there's a couple of cases that I'm looking at now that I find fascinating. I'm kind of looking forward to doing it in a slightly different way. You know, currently what's happening with Diddy is a pretty good indicator, right? I'm not trying to come into this with you can get really wrapped up in emotion with these cases, and it's easy to become indignant. You know, even if it's righteous indignation. It doesn't benefit you if you're trying to evaluate something and even be, remotely unbiased. You know, the truth of the matter is this: he didn't get convicted on the larger of the crimes, and the crime that he did get convicted of, the Mann Act. It has been said in the past that the Mann Act was definitely Chuck Berry's least favorite law, and I don't know if it existed before him, because you'll hear people say all the time that they came up with that law just to prosecute him. And that may be the case. Honestly, I don't know the answer to it. I do know this. It has been a horrifically racist law since the first time they came up with it. It was a law to punish black guys that took white women in cars across state lines. I'm not being scandalous or anything like that. If you do a brief history of the Mann Act and you go back and look at all of the people that have been prosecuted for it, it's not something that you see a lot of white folk prosecuted for. And that's kind of a problem. They gave my son an IQ test before he was assigned. He refused to take it and just wrote, "I think, therefore I am." Well, the existential approach might have worked out if they sent them to a nice place. Because of my traumatic brain injury, not only did I have to take an IQ test, but they had me retake it and retake it and retake it. And it's a frustrating process, because they're very long tests, and very often they'll stop you in the middle of it. You know, you'll be 3 hours into a test and somebody stabs somebody. You're going back to your unit, and it might be a week before you go back there and start on it again, or 2 weeks. He was probably smarter than most with that answer. I'll tell you what, Todd, I can back that up. I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all, but I saw some really, really questionable stuff in terms of intelligence inside. Doesn't mean that it's full of stupid people. It's not. There are a lot of really intelligent cats in prison, and there are a lot of adults. And I think it's probably more frustrating to do time if you've got some snap. You'll see the guys that don't seem to have a lot on the ball, and it's just like summer camp for bad people. You know, it didn't work out. He still thought he was a citizen. Yeah, Renee B, that about sums it up, didn't it? Is Diddy having some of that fancy maggot cheese shipped in? Balut?
No, Castle. What is that stuff called?
Watch your mouth. Did you hear him? He's cursing from the kitchen, I think. Or he could be saying the name of the cheese, but it did sound a little cursy. No, but God bless you. Karzu Mazu. Gesundheit. Yeah, apparently that cheese has maggots in it. No, he's what he's doing is crying up a storm. He also said that he is 100% convinced that the people in there want him dead. He is worried, allegedly, and according to the National Enquirer, and you got to be careful because he's suing people for up to $100 million. He's suing all kinds of people now that he's planning on getting out and going back and doing Madison Square Garden. Diddy's ready to go. I think Diddy's jumping the gun. I think that Rune Subramanian is going to bust this dude off. I don't think he's going to get the 1-year sentence or the time served sentence that people think that he's going to get. Yeah, you should be my brother's sister. That would work out for you because Johnny's the kind of guy that would neck that in a heartbeat. And in an answer to an earlier question, I have not pierced my ear. That day's coming. Fortunately, when we went by the other day for me to pay off the bet, it was absolutely packed in there. Was it not?
It was.
See that? It was. I wasn't not paying off a debt, but the idea of waiting for 20 or 30 minutes to be humiliated in public and filmed didn't sound like a good idea. If God put up with that, I don't need to. Well, I don't know that there was any discussion of that. At least a day, I think, would be fair. So anyway, he's been writing to Rune Subramanian, and he's been saying that he thinks the guards want to kill him, number one. He thinks the guards want him dead, and he's been getting side-eyed by convicts all the time. There are inmates in there that aren't very happy to have Diddy around, and apparently they're side-eyeing the crap out of him. For this reason, his anxiety is off the chart, and he's not getting any sleep. Now, I haven't seen Diddy. I remember Tisha tells when the trial was going on, I would catch her updates at night. Tisha does great work. She did, especially from the trial. She killed it. But she said he was thick. She said Diddy's been eating really well. And look, man, if you're in a unit and you're not getting out of that unit and you can spend $300 a month, I don't know how the federal system works for like MDC Brooklyn. I know that a normal Fed facility, you can spend $360 a month. And I guarantee you Diddy's putting money on a bunch of people's books, and he's probably just eating the sugary stuff. And I'm not saying that just to pick on dude, but when you're coming off of opiates, in fact, when you're coming off of most dope, sugar does wonderful things for the receptors. Chocolate does wonderful things for the receptors. There are candies that make you feel like you're not hurting as bad as you are. And stuff with a ton of sugar in it has that effect. I would imagine the reason that he looked like he was beefy when he got to trial is because he's been eating the sweets. See, you've got regular food inside, and then you got Zuzus and Wham Whams. And anybody that's done time will laugh when you say that. But the Zuzus and Wham Whams are just the sugary stuff that you buy. It's not like meat sticks and pasta and fish and all of the healthy stuff. And I say healthy like this, but a lot healthier than the D grade meat that they serve you in there. And I'm not joking, people. You'll hear convicts talk about stuff from inside, like the Wes Watsons of the world, who talk about how every single day that they got up, somebody was getting their throat cut. Or when he cut a guy from his ear to his chin, and the guy took 200 and what? 300 stitches cut from here to here. I don't care if you cut all the way through to the other side and had to do internal and stitch everything back together. I actually asked AI, and they said it would be about an 8-meter long cut. 16 feet, something like that. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But so where are we at? This dude gets in and does basically what our boy from Idaho, Koberger, did. He gets in there and he starts pissing off two groups of people that you really don't want to make angry when you get going to the joint. Don't piss off the cops because you can't avoid them. Wherever they send you, if you're somebody that bucks on police, you're going to get beat on everywhere you go. It's a bad, bad deal. You don't want an assault on staff, and you don't want to just be a pain in their ass. But worst of all, don't get caught telling on them. And when he writes stuff like, I'm worried that the cops are going to kill me, the cops are treating me this way, the cops are treating me that way, it's bad form, man. And this is the guy that talks about Kid Cudi being a snitch. I got news for you, man. Diddy's snitching with the entire world watching, right? Trust and believe he's naming which inmates are scaring him, and he's begging to be let out. I got news for you, man. I don't see that coming. This is my prediction. You guys can mock me openly if I come out wrong on this, but there are times when a judge can dole out justice to a dude that didn't get justice when he was in front of the jury. He was offered 25 years in a plea deal, if I'm not mistaken, and he turned it down. That was my understanding. So I've never seen people that go to the box and then get convicted of any part of that don't get slapped silly. The amount of money that they spent prosecuting Diddy, I'd be really surprised if the judge were to just turn around and let the dude walk. And if he didn't believe that he was guilty of everything that he heard in court, then the logical thing to do is to let Diddy out the day after he's found not guilty, or have a hearing. But when they had the bail hearing, and for Diddy to go in and say, look, I'll put up the 50 million, 100 million. What do you need? How much money do you need for me to put up? And to have the judge say, no, wrong. You're staying in there. And you're staying in there because of the reasons that I stated the first 2 or 3 times that you asked. You're a threat to society. You're a danger to society. Okay, now we hit the October 3rd, and Rune Subramanian all of a sudden wants to give the guy a 4-year sentence. To me, you bring me a tissue. To me, that doesn't seem particularly logical. It really doesn't. Now, I could be wrong. We'll see. Once he gets to prison, it'll be much easier for him to get opioids. There's a lot of truth to that normally. Renee B. Normally, I would agree with you 100%. Hold one second, folks. Normally, I would agree with that 100% because it is almost always easier to cop dope inside a prison than it is inside a county jail, because at prison, the visitation is way different. You're not usually restricted by visiting people through glass. You have face-to-face visits. However, MDC Brooklyn is legendary for being able to get dope in it. I mean, everybody I've ever met that went through there said it was not a hard place to score a bag of anything. And if you think about its proximity to, I mean, where it is, right? It's in the middle of New York. All of the people who are in there waiting to go to a federal case, normally, like I did my time. I did time in Arizona. I did time in Pennsylvania. I did time in California. Right, I got in Oregon. I got shipped all over the place. When these guys all got busted in New York, so when I was at one of the prisons I was at, there might be 35 locals whose family can come and visit them regularly, and there might be, a couple of dozen people whose family will come in once a year or whatever and sit with them for a weekend. But at MDC Brooklyn, everybody there is from New York. All of their people are right there. So I would imagine visitation there probably facilitates that. And I don't know. I can't say cops are bringing the stuff in there. I've seen cops bring it in plenty of other places. And all I know is it has a very, very bad reputation. I mean, among the fellas, it has a good reputation of being a place that you can get wasted all the time. And people talk about wine there, which means that the cops have got to be somewhat laid back if they're letting you make wine. Pete Taylor, good to see you. I will absolutely be commenting on the Menendez brothers' parole hearing. Here's the thing with that. This sucks for the Menendez brothers, but it doesn't surprise me a tremendous amount. I'll bang this one out real quick while it's on my head. It doesn't surprise me much. Hey, Heather Rhodes, good to see you. And the reason it doesn't is this is a polarizing issue, big time. Even among people that have followed this case, it's almost like a Republican Democrat thing. The people that want this guy out are pretty vocal about it. And these guys, and they feel like the dad was definitely a predator. And there's some evidence now out there to back that up, right? He managed rock bands, and one of them in particular was Menudo. And Menudo was a band that was created. So it was kids from like 13 to 17 or 13 to 18, something like that, and the occasional 12-year-old. But as these kids aged, they just removed them from the band and brought in new kids to replace them. So it's like Menudo never went away. And in Latin America, they were absolutely massive. And the Menendez brothers' father was their manager. And a kid came out after the fact and said, this guy sexually assaulted me. He molested me over a period of time. And this was of course, what Lyle and Eric used as their justification for killing dad. And the justification for killing mom was she was aware of the fact that the father was doing this to them and did nothing about it, which obviously would be a problem. Does it prove anything? I don't know. It proves that the dad was a scumbag. Doesn't necessarily prove that the dad was doing that to them. But this is why I think they got a 5-year dump. And I know to us, it's like 5 years is a long freaking time. But when you got a 30-piece in and you figure after the next 5, you're going to be getting out, I think that's probably not the end of the world for the Menendez brothers. And it's an opportunity for the parole board to go, you know what? Prove you're good guys. You've been teaching people to read. You've been setting up all these programs. You have really done an awful lot to make the world a better place. You're trying to bloom where you're planted. and they're not getting write-ups. But recently, one of them had to get taken to the hospital. He had some kidney stones or gallbladder stones or something like that, gallstones. But whatever it was super painful. And I don't know, if you're someone that sits on a parole board, you start going, you know what, are they working me? What's up with the injury? Is there any malingering? They've seen it all. And I'm not saying they did, by the way, at all. But I think the combination of them going in there, and this is the parole board saying, I'm sure you're really pissed off. You got hurt. You had to go to the hospital right as you were coming up on what you thought was going to be a lock that you're going to walk right out the front door and leave here. Let's see if you can keep your cool for the next 5 years. And I think that it's almost like a rubber stamp. The people, I think that the older the generation is, the more they're less filled in on this case. They remember it from 1989 or 1990 when they went to court or whatever, but they're not familiar with a lot of the other stuff that took place. And a 5-year dump removes a lot of those people from planet Earth. I know that sounds terrible. Those brothers have served enough time. They aren't a danger to others also. I completely understand where you're coming from. And Renee B also says, not getting any write-ups in that amount of time is amazing. It's remarkable. You got to walk in and just say, I'm not participating in anything. The people that you usually see get away with this stuff are very often religious. You hear people, again, the Wes Watsons of the world, the guys that have been to prison that are hella hard, will tell you that it doesn't matter whether you believe in God. You're going to go in there and you're going to do exactly what they tell you to do. And it's just not the way it is. I mean, you're probably not going to avoid putting work in at a penitentiary, but in some you are. It kind of depends on the shot caller. But if you say, I'm not part of this, I'm a Christian brother, or I'm a Muslim brother, or I'm a this or that, but that's how I ride. That's my faith. I've watched them say to guys, you're good. Go live that life. But let me find you on a poker table, or let me find you fronting a bag of dope, or let me find you in a gay relationship, or something that just outs you as not being what you say you are. And the fellas are going to lose their sense of humor really, really quickly. Yeah, not getting any write-ups for the Menendez brothers is absolutely amazing. I'll be honest, I'm in the camp that's rooting for him to get out. The fact that this guy from Menudo comes forward and talks about what happened to him does not prove that the Menendez father was that person. But it sure as hell doesn't paint him in a good light. And when you start adding stuff like that together, if they were just a bunch of murdering asses, right? Like there is a part of society that believes they are. You got any idea what kind of discipline it takes to then spend the better part of 3 decades doing nothing wrong in a prison? That's just a very difficult thing to do. I mean, honestly, you got to stay away from everything. They would love to bust them. It would be in newspapers if those guys were cheating, if they were chipping a little dope here or there, or smoking some weed or making some wine. It's not the kind of thing that they would get away with. You know what I mean? They're famous, and I guarantee there would be snitches ready to roll on them in a heartbeat. Mods Rock says, and he's right. These are great mods. They really are fantastic mods. And busy. They really are. Busy. Archie's mom says, I'm rooting for them too. I love the way you worded this. Did the Caucasian group approach you? I got approached by, it was like rush week over the course of the first year I was in the feds. I got approached by a lot of Caucasian organizations. The really big one that you're probably thinking of doesn't approach people much these days. The term you often hear used is that their books are closed, meaning that they're not recruiting any new people into it. Doesn't mean the people aren't getting in there. I knew a guy, we'll just call him Cadillac, a white fella that had about 27 years, I think is what his sentence was. And we were at the special management unit, the SMU at Lewisburg, and he just said, yeah, I'm making this my life. And I thought at the time, I was like, man, you wait and see how fast half of that 27 years is gone. I mean, I was closing in on a decade or whatever. And it goes by quicker than you think it's going to. But this dude wrote off the rest of his life. He ended up joining one of these organizations. And the term they use is he was on the porch. He owed them a body. That's a pretty disturbing sentence, but that's how it worked. He was owed a body. If he really wanted to join this organization, when the time came that they said, go snuff this dude, That's exactly what they're going to do, and that's what he did. And he turned a 27-year. Well, he threw his life away, and he's important in there. You know what I mean? It really is like being a made man. You know, those guys are gangsters in the prison sense of the word. They are absolute gangsters. They can kind of get away with a lot more stuff because they have a ridiculous sized organization backing them. And in a lot of ways, and this may sound crazy to people, but in a lot of ways, it's beneficial even with the staff because there's just a certain level of respect that that bangers are afforded in there, especially if they're, I don't know how you say this without sounding stupid, but if they're respectable, if they're the kind of people that are gangbanging but not really going off on officers, right? If they're people that respect authority, they're treated differently, to be sure. You know, weird things happen. Like if there's a bunch of tension on the yard and different groups are fighting each other, they grab the shot callers, right? The warden will sit down with the shot caller from this car and the shot caller from that car, and they'll try to work out a way that everybody can get along, if that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make a fart bit of sense, but that's kind of how it goes down. So that's what the diddler is getting ready to go to, folks. I mean, I think that I've heard predictions anywhere from people saying that he's going to walk out of the courthouse on October the 3rd. I struggle to believe that. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me at all. Dear Lord, so happy my son said respectfully, no, thank you. Yeah, you are. And it's, you know what? I'll tip my hat to him. It's not an easy thing sometimes to not join up because you feel like you're instantly protected. I couldn't deal with the imagery. Diddy will PC up. Todd, I don't know how he couldn't. I honestly don't know how he couldn't. Here's the thing. No matter what happens and no matter what he's found guilty or not guilty of, we tend to think of people inside prison as inside prison, right? So yeah, maybe somebody's got a cell phone or they get People Magazine or they're reading Us, you know, and maybe a couple of guys with cell phones can watch some stuff on YouTube. But how many people really could know a whole lot about this case? There are people that he would end up doing time with that haven't gone to jail yet. There are people that he's going to do time with who got to jail yesterday, who followed the entire freaking case on their phone, right? Who subscribed to 5 or 6 different content creators that talked about Diddy around the clock for, a year. There are people that watched every single video that every single one of the people in the Diddyverse made. You know, it's not one of those situations where it's like, well, those people have been in for an eternity and he's getting ready to join them. He's going to be getting ready to join them with people that got busted after him, people that got busted before him. There are people that are going to be going back on violations. You can't imagine how many times that happens. So when you get out of federal prison, you're given probation after your sentence. So let's say you had a 10-year rip. They give you a 3-year tail. That means that for 3 years after you leave prison, you're going to have to report to a probation officer every single week. You're going to be put on the number or the color system. With the color system, you dial a number every morning, and that the phone rings, or you can dial it at night, the night before. But the phone rings, and you pick it up, and they go, the colors for Tuesday the 5th are red, blue, gray, and pink. And if that's one of your colors, you got 6 hours or 7 hours, depending on where you're at, to get down to the place that does the drug screening and pee in a cup for him. Do I think he'll end up like Whitey Bulger? I don't. Whitey Bulger chose to go to his own death, believe it or not. I mean, all Whitey Bulger had to do was say, I'm not going out there. They sent him to a yard that he knew was active. They sent him to a yard that he knew what was going to happen to him. And he just said, nope, you can roll me out there. There's a lot of conspiracy stuff about Whitey Bulger and the fact that they basically said to him, he was told, if you don't go to your execution, then we're going to go after your family. And I don't know if there's any truth to that, but boy, there sure seems to be a lot of people that believe it. And it would not have taken much. William, what's happened to my brother? But all it would have taken was for that fool to say, I'm not going out. Every time you get to a yard that is active, right? There are 2 kinds of yards. One is an active yard, one is not. Like where Larry Nassar is going, that's special needs. It's not an active yard. There's nobody gangbanging there. There's nobody pushing politics there. It's a completely different setup. But if you're going to a place like Victorville, or you're going to a place like like Florence, Colorado, or any of these places, right? When you get there, you're going to sit down with SIS, and SIS is just going to ask you a big series of questions. Have you ever dropped out of a gang? Have you ever worked with authorities? Have you ever done any of these things? You go down the list. And the last question is, do you have any enemies? No. And if you have enemies, if a guy puts you on what's called a keep separate list, they'll pull you up in the computer and see all the people that say, I don't want to go anywhere near him, right? Or people that you said, I don't want to go anywhere near them. But if there are no keep separates, the last thing they say is, so do you have any reason why you can't go out to this yard? If you say no, they'll go, okay, we're going to put you out here. These fellas check paperwork. These guys are going to want to know your criminal background. They're going to talk to you. They're going to pressure you. You sure you want to go out there? And a bus of 30 people will come in and 9 of them will walk out. The other 21 will go, screw this, and go straight to the hole and wait to get shipped to another yard where they're going to go through the same process. You know, if you're gonna end up on one of those special needs yards full time, then you have to do something that they call debriefing. At least this is how it is for gang members. From what I understand, you just can't drop out of a gang. They want you to sit down and tell them everything you know. Who's in it? What kind of stuff have they done? It's called debriefing. It's the reason that people hate check-ins, right? Particularly gang dropout check-ins. But I was never in a gang, so those guys do what they do. Renee B says, I respect he saved his family. Well, that is the rumor. The rumor is that they said to him, no more ducking and dodging. You know, you're going to get a transfer to an active yard. You're going to walk out on that yard or we're going after your family. That has been alleged by people all over the internet. If not, it's a really, really weird story. I'll tell you what, it is a weird story because that dude did not have to wheel himself out there and get, I don't know if you guys know how he ended, but his last days on planet Earth were not particularly, his last minutes on planet Earth were not particularly pleasant. They removed his tongue as a way to just not be very kind, which is usually symbolic of the whole "you're a rat" thing. So they lop off his tongue, and then they leave a couple of pieces in his ocular sockets. That's my understanding, and that's kind of a tough way to die. They also beat the piss out of him. He was 85, 86, something like that at the time. But he had been a thorn in the side everywhere he went. Allegedly, when he was at the United States Penitentiary, I think it was Coleman, Florida, or it might have been the one in Arizona, USP Tucson, Uncle Sneaky Camp. But when he was at that yard, he had a relationship. Hey, Reese had a relationship with one of the nurses there, and this was a thorn in the side. He also was selling his IDs. He would mail them out once a week. You know, put it in a letter and mail it out so that people could sell them on eBay. There was a period of time where the rat IDs were really selling, the Whitey Bulger rat IDs. You know, I'm not making any excuses for anybody, but he had a rough go of it. When he was at Alcatraz, he was part of the LSD experiment, and they were whacking those guys, putting it directly in veins, lysergic, Johnny Scoville, directly into a vein. And they were doing it in amounts that were weighed by like the 1/4 of a gram, the 1/2 a gram, the 1/3 of a gram, that kind of stuff. And traditionally, that stuff is put onto blotter paper or sugar cubes or into a pill or whatever in microgram amounts. It's not something that they call them mics. It's not something you normally see somebody, whack a 1/2 a gram of. And I don't know, as far as I know, it's not something you see people mainline a lot, but what do I know? So what do I think P. Diddy's sentence will be? Well, there's the $1 million question. Here's what I don't think it will be. I don't think it'll be a slap on the wrist. This is a federal system. It's a little bit different than the state. So if a judge in the state were to say, well, you just got charged with, beating your girlfriend, the lawyer will jump up and go, yeah, I object. He wasn't convicted of that. He got charged for that, but he wasn't convicted of that. In the feds, that's not something they can absolutely get up and say, I'm going to talk about everything that just happened in that trial that he got found not guilty of, because the judge has it at his ability to say, I happen to believe it. And if it's one of those situations where, the judge has a much better handle on what the RICO statutes are. And I think that it's probably frustrating for Subramanian because I think he believes that the case was proved. And if that's not the case, then why not let him out? Why keep him in there? Renee B says, I'm thinking 20. I tell you what, I don't know that he's going to max it out, but I think he's probably going to want to get as close to 20 as he can. Diddy's got a couple of years in, so he would have 18 left. He would do 8.5 years on 10. And then probably another, so he'd probably have to bring about another 14 or 15 years if he were to get 20. And I don't know. I do think that there's a really good chance that Subramanian is going to use this as a way to sentence him for being a lowlife. Whether you believe all of the stories about Diddy, whether you believe that the guy was drugging people, and a lot of it was smoke and mirrors. It just was. I mean, I started talking about some of it being smoke and mirrors early on in the game. Just some of the stuff that got repeated constantly, like the thing with Justin Bieber at the nightclub with the football player. He used to play for the Giants. What the hell is his name? It's got 3 initials. Someone will help me out with that. But anyway, the story, as the story goes, the kid was just finished performing oral sex. When we finally got the ability to look at that film from a couple of different directions, there was 2 feet between Diddy and the guy that he allegedly was filleting. It simply didn't happen. And there was a lot of that stuff. People who were out there talking about, just a lot of it got made up. A lot of it it became a feeding frenzy because of the amount of views that anybody talking about it, especially the more outrageous the thumbnail and the title. We've talked about this even from the day of sentencing. Like, you can go find tons of videos right now that say Sean Combs drops dead in court. Like, what, are you kidding me? They don't, not only do they not have to be real, they don't even have to be in the ballpark of real. I think that the Diddy case if there's a lesson to the general public, it's that feeding frenzies can be really dangerous. And I think that there are people out there that want to see him get a light sentence because of that. There are also people out there that believe that the Mann Act is ridiculously racist, and it's hard to argue that. I mean, it is. It's hard to argue that. This is traditionally not used the way it's being used with Diddy. And Diddy's team has appealed the dog crap out of this to ask for either a resentencing, to have this thrown out, or to even go back for a retrial, which just sounded ridiculous to me. But they're throwing Hail Marys everywhere. They put up a big bail package, and they're writing to Subramanian right now saying he can't do this time, that he's fearing for his life, that he lives in a constant state of the vagus nerve engaged. He's in fight or flight around the clock. He's not getting any sleep. Tell you what, all I saw was a court drawing of him, but he looked like he was probably the healthiest he had ever been. Certainly the thickest he had ever been. But he had that a fairly big habit of that pink cocaine, right? The stuff they call Tucci. It's not really cocaine, but they call it pink cocaine. And allegedly, he had a fat bag of it before when he got picked up in New York for this case, when they picked him up at that hotel room, he was holding a fat bag of Tucci there. And we know he was addicted to opioids, right? So he had a pretty bad habit that he had to work through. Either way, he'll be an old man. I don't think his sons can continue his legacy. I think his sons can continue his legacy, but I think, unfortunately, his legacy is raping women, giving them drugs. I mean, his legacy is no longer going to be what it was, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe the public will just take him back with open arms. I remember the OJ verdict. There were people in the street beeping the horn and happy as hell, waving flags. These kind of cases are super, super divisive. Now, I think a lot of sentencing with fans and people cheering Diddy and the free Diddy signs and all of this stuff. I think a lot of that were people that were paid. Oh yeah, he's definitely still in prison. Yeah, he's not left. He was found not guilty except for the 2 counts of the Mann Act, which could, if run one after the other, if run bow-legged, they give him to them running wild, he could be looking at 2 10-year sentences. So he could theoretically get 20 years for this. The judge had to sit through that entire case. And I promise you, Rune Subramanian has got an opinion on whether or not Sean Combs was guilty. He has not been particularly kind to the Diddy camp, even since the predominantly not guilty verdict. He didn't get found not guilty. He just got found not guilty on racketeering and some of the other, but the last two he was convicted on. Normally, if you're looking at a really small sentence, if you're going to be looking at 2 years or 3 years or whatever, there's that period of time where the judge kind of does this dude got screwed. We should let him out now so that at least he has the opportunity to start putting his life back together, because we had him locked up for stuff that he obviously wasn't doing. Diddy went back in with a huge bail package and the same kind of an arrangement. And Subramanian said, no, for the same reasons I said no every other time. And those reasons were, this dude's a danger, right? He's a danger to the public. He's also a flight risk. Well, if you're not giving him a long sentence, why the hell would you worry about him running? To me, it seems like he's obviously telegraphing the fact that this sentence isn't going to be 2 years. You know, that the diddler, I think that it's going to fall somewhere between 10 and 20. That's my gut. The judge could give him 10 on each, and he could run them concurrently. It would be a symbolic thing, but he also could just break him off and say, I'm going to give you 10 years for each of these, and I'm going to make you serve them consecutively, because there are two separate victims. If I give you 10 years on one and nothing on the other, who am I saying is not worth the 10 years? Which victim am I brushing to the side and saying, well, I'll punish him for what he did to you, but I'm not going to punish him for what he did to you? I don't know. It's a tough thing. Do you really think his sons can handle his recording studio? Vis-a-vis molesting girls on boats, his son has already seemed to follow in his footsteps. And as we talked about a long time ago, allegedly his kid was doing freak-offs with his dad. I can't think of anything more repulsive on planet Earth than having some kind of activity of any kind like that with a relative. Just is skeezy, disgusting stuff that's hard to wrap your brain around, right? Having your father-son combo or your mother-daughter combo, your filth in the worst sense of the word, just absolutely disgusting. Ain't no legacy, says Kellyanne. I think whatever legacy he had is going to be so overshadowed by the accusations of so many people. And you know, there are people who are going to say, the entire thing's a setup. Yeah, well, we also watched him beat the crap out of his girlfriend on film. You know, and we watched him we watched him tell the world, right, with a absolute confidence that I never put hands on that woman, right? Stared straight at the lens and just lied to the world. And if he's that adept, right? And I've always said that lying is the fruit of addiction, especially opioid addiction. But if he's that adept at lying, then, you know, anything else that he's swearing on a stack of Bibles he didn't do, I don't buy it. I really don't. I don't buy it. And that's all I've got to say about that. So yeah, my prediction is that we're looking between 10 and 20. So the max, whether or not he maxes them out running wild or he maxes them out and lets the diddler run them at the same time. But this ex parte communication, this is not putting him in a solid footing with the fellas. Right from Jump Street, this is a kite dropping baby, whiny. You know, he's not acting like a convict. You get in there and you do your number, and that's just simply not what he's doing. What he's doing is expecting still to be treated differently than everybody else. He's still in that place where he thinks he's pretty damn special, man. You know, he's pretty damn special, but he's just a convict now. He's convicted. He's a convict. And now from here, he's going to have to figure out, you know, how he's going to do his time. I don't think there's a chance in hell he walks out on court date. And there's a lot of people predicting that. This cost the United States millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. And I hate to make it sound that way, but it's just the truth. Feds are going to get their money's worth, man. They're going to get their money's worth. He got convicted on 2 counts, and they're going to give him time on those 2 counts. He says he has letters. Who is going to do him in? You know what? Here's the thing with that clown. Wade Wilson has already overdosed in his cell. He's already OD'd once, and they got him and brought him back. He's another epic idiot. that tattoo he has on his face of a swastika, the fellas are going to take very serious umbrage with that. They're not going to be happy. Well, I'm glad that you popped up to say hi, B-Lady. I don't think anybody. He's not in any danger of anybody doing him in. Death row is probably the safest place to do time. You're so limited in your interaction with other inmates. They do everything possible to keep death row inmates separate from one another. I mean, he's going to have a cellmate, but they're going to do everything they can to keep everybody else separate because those people have nothing to lose. A guy with a death sentence, right, already has one death sentence, killing another inmate. What they're trying to do is keep his paperwork as light as possible. So every place that I've ever heard of doing anything to do with death row, the inmates are horrifically kept from being able to hang out. You can go and talk through the door. Each inmate gets time out alone and they can go and sort of talk through the door, but they really limit how much interaction you can have with other people. If they do let you out all at once, they put you in cages so that you're in a cage with two people. There's a guy next to you in a cage with two people, guy next to him in a cage. It's he has a bigger one on the side of his head. Oh, the Swazi. Yeah, he's covered in political ink. The guy's an absolute asshat because those tattoos, this sounds so dumb saying it out loud, but those tattoos have to be earned, which means he had to put work in. He had to go do something in order to get those. And I don't know, man. He's kind of openly, he's been outed big time for being bisexual. And look, man, live any life you want to live, but that's probably not one you want the fellas knowing about. You know what I mean? That's just best case scenario. You don't want the fellas inside thinking that you're into men. Then they kind of start feeling like you're a shower shark. And every time somebody's getting out of the shower, you're staring at them. Those kind of guys don't last long, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent. They end up getting their wigs split. And it's never particularly kind, right? Particularly. It's guys who put, a padlock in a sock and then just go to work hitting someone in the head with it, which is a frightening concept. 1 second, people, it's family. Sorry about that. But I do think that we're in a situation where come the 3rd of October, it's going to be a fascinating moment. If the diddler ends up with if he ends up with a sentence a lot longer than what he was expecting, it's going to be interesting to hear about how he reacts. Know what I mean? I read Adam Montgomery got moved, but no one knows where. What does that mean? Well, when somebody gets transferred, you depending on how far someone's getting transferred in the feds, while you're in transfer, it doesn't say where you're at. So if you look up a person's register number and they're anywhere in the process of being picked up to take to Oklahoma City or to take to Pahrump or to take to Atlanta, wherever your transfer center is going to be, and you're going to fly on Con Air, like the movie, except not nearly as cool. You know what I'm saying? But they put you on a 737 and they fly you to either Atlanta or if you're out near Nevada, you'll go through Pahrump. And if not, Oklahoma City. You land at the airport, the plane pulls up, the jetway comes out. When you come out of the jetway, you're in prison. It's just like any other prison, but it's right at the airport. The one in Oklahoma, I think, is a 8 or 10-story building. Yeah. So until he gets to his new final home, then there isn't whine a little bit more. Then he's not going to show up in the system. He's just in transit. So people will know he's being moved, but no one will know where he's going. And they do that again because they don't want Vin Diesel and his crew to pull up behind the bus and shoot one of those gun things that pulls the back door off so that they can then get. It's far-fetched as hell, right? But I remember saying to cops, "Hey, man, is there a train this week?" "Oh, I can't tell you that." I mean, it's 5 freaking days, and they can't even tell you if there's one coming that week. They're real tight-lipped about it. And the way you normally find out is you get up in the morning and you go to make a phone call, and it's a wrap. You pick up the phone and your phone doesn't work. That usually means you're getting moved that day because they're afraid you're going to catch a rumor of what's going on and pick up the phone and call Vin Diesel and have him grab you. You've been watching women in prison videos and have learned a lot. Are they filming from inside? There's a lot of that going around, man. People with cell phones. See, in the feds, you're not going to see a federal inmate who's making a video from the inside and talking about it because they just dump 4 years on you. I mean, they catch you with a cell phone. They can instantly just go, boom, that's an escape tool. Here's a quick 4 years, right? They're not farting around. The B lady says, yep, filming from inside. If you're a fed and you do that and they catch you, you can't believe the trouble you get in for that. And it makes sense. If you were trying to escape, you got any idea the power of one of these babies? You call somebody on the phone and go, meet me at the gate at 1:15, or I'm going over the fence at midnight. That's probably somebody's best opportunity to get out of there is to have a cell phone. So they consider it an escape tool, and that's a wrap. Vin Diesel's getting older, slow and cranky, would replace Fast and Furious. You know something? I think I'm older than Vin Diesel. So you're lucky that I like you, Kelly. Because, damn. Miranda, good to see you. Hi, guys. Lots of love to all. Glad your mom is doing okay. God bless her. Thanks. She came through the surgery well. She does have an infection, so any prayers that we can get for that would really be appreciated. Folks, the public speaker in me, we've gotten to the 1 hour mark. And this is the time where I'll be checking in and making sure that everything is good with Ma. She's doing well, B-Lady, but she could use some prayers. The surgery went well. They put some pins and rebuilt a hip, but there's some infection, and we trust that that's going to be taken care of with a lot of ones, and she's going to be fine and on her feet, dancing and be in Moscowville hopefully by the end of this week. So all of the prayers that we can get for that would be appreciated. If you guys are watching this at home or whatever, and you could see the comments on the screen and you dig it, leave a comment after this video and just say, hey, loved the comments on the screen. If you didn't love it, you can leave a comment that says, no, I don't love the comments on the screen, because they say this is a beta test. And if this is a beta test, let's give them a little bit of feedback so we can see if maybe they can either improve it, get rid of it, whatever the case may be. All righty? So if you don't mind, leave a comment after the video on that. I would appreciate it. All right, people, I will be back tomorrow morning. The reason you haven't seen Johnny Scoville is it's just been a rugged weekend, right? It really has. It's just been a rough weekend. Yeah, according to it says beta test, comments on stage, beta test. That's what I got on the top of mine anyway. All right, people, between now and tomorrow morning when I will be here, and I would imagine that Johnny Scoville will be going live tomorrow as well. Between now and the next time we see you, do me a favor. Put a little love in your heart. I'm Tommy. God bless. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody. And Diddy, you're a bad man.